Okay, and welcome back guys for this next part of the character focus series. So obviously now that we've got Abaddon fully finished and on his base, we can now work on his face. So what we're going to do is start off by doing all of the flesh tone. We will get the face 100% finished, and then we can go through and do his little wires and his collar and things like that in, and then obviously the hair piece with this gold section on top here. So I've got the camera zoomed in a little bit more than normal, so apologies for the badly nail bitten thumb there. Anxiety issues takes its toll on fingernails, but hopefully this will stay in focus and we can get a good job going on this. So paint wise, I've got some Cadian flesh tone, some Kislev flesh and Pallid Witch flesh. So all I'm going to do first, now the palette is a little bit wet, I've got some water on here just to make using this a little bit easier. I haven't got to thin it too much with water from the water pot there. So all I'm going to do is get a nice smooth finish of this over the top of the face here. Now obviously when it comes to doing the tongue and the teeth and things like that, I'll be adding a few extra colours to the palette. But I find that for flesh tones, these three colours are a pretty good all-round base for a pale look. In the reference that I've seen, he is quite pale skin. So as always, super thin layers and build it up. We are going to be using a wash for this, just because it's easier to get those shaded details in and it's quicker, and I have no shame in using washes. At the end of the day, they are a tool. If they get a good result, then why not use them? So obviously you can see at the minute he's quite sort of dark pinkish skinned with this, but that's fine because this is going to be the undertone for his skin. We're going for a pale but warm or warmish skin tone. Hopefully that will stay in focus. working with a cheapish camera for now, and I'm hoping that as I get more supporters here on Patreon, that obviously, like I say, the funds from Patreon will always go back into the YouTube channel and making content for Patreon, including things like replacement cameras or better quality cameras, extra cameras for more angles. So as always, it is greatly appreciated that you guys are showing your support with these, you know, by being a Patreon member. Okay, so there we go. Aside from his teeth and a little bit on his bottom lip there, he is almost done. I'm really hoping that I can get this as detailed as I would without the camera in the way, with the camera in the way, so you guys can see it. Okay, so now I'm just taking some of this Kislev flesh and the Acadia flesh tone. I'm just going to try and mix up a little bit of a mid-tone between the two. And use this basically to pick off the lightest areas. So obviously it's going to be the top of the head. We're going to go for the cheekbones just under the eyes. Now obviously this side of his face, so his right, is going to be in shadow, so it is going to be a bit darker than the other side. The other side is what's going to show that pale skin. This side's what will show the mid-tone and a bit more shadow. Okay, so I'm now switching down to a size 0, and all I'm going to do is just get these eyes in sort of temporarily. So hopefully we can get this to focus and I can get close enough to see what I'm doing. Not the best looking at the minute, but don't worry, we will neaten this up. Now, because I'm right-handed, I find it easier painting on the right hand side, so what I'm doing is turning them upside down here so that I can get this in there. Oh. Now I'm not too worried about, like I say, getting too much of a blob in there at the minute, because once I come to add in the details and going right into these eyes around this is what will be left, or what will be left will be the eyes themselves. So there we go at the minute. Two big white sockets. But now what we can do is go back in with some of the Cadian flesh tone and now pick off along those cheeks and build up into those eyes. Obviously we've got the top there. There we go, and all that we're left with is that little white bit just on the inside. So now we'll do the same with this one. And there is that eye. And now to do the same with the teeth, all I'm going to do for now is just go in with the pallid witch flesh. The reason I use the pallid witch is it has a slightly sort of greyish tint to it, or fleshy tone, and obviously teeth, they're not perfectly white, not unless you're a Primarch. They may have pearly white teeth. All we're looking to do is just get that in there. So that's the teeth done. Alright, so now what we do is start building up with a little bit more of the Kislev flesh. This is a little bit more of a peachy colour compared to the Cadian flesh tone, but that's okay. By the time we come back in and build these layers up, we'll get it to the tone that we want. Now I'm using quite thin down. I want to build this up in thin layers and work my way up to a little bit more of an opaque colour, and that way we can also get these smooth blends. because I'm using such thin paint here, it does dry out quite quick, so it is very important that I keep the bristles damp by cleaning my brush off every now and then in the just that little water pot that I've got off to the side. I'm not so much rinsing the brush off so that it, you know, leaves paint in that pot. I'm doing just enough that the brush stays wet, and then I can just pull it across some paper towel that I've got on my lap here, and that just pulls some of that moisture back out, but it's enough to stop the paint from drying in the bristles. And you'll note that I am also trying to keep the paint away from the foil. Obviously I don't want it drying up in the edge there. We want to keep this down to the bottom half of the bristles. Okay, so hopefully you can see there that he is slowly getting paler. Like I said, this is a bit of a process. Right, now obviously he's going to have a bit of shadow in that crease area there. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of the pallid witch flesh and start mixing this in to the kislev flesh that I've got here. And I'm going to concentrate this mostly to the front and this side of his face, and obviously the top. Now obviously you want to catch things like the bridge of the nose, the flare of the nostrils, the top of the cheekbone, and then just come down slightly. Now the under the nose, you could do a little bit on one side and then catch the edge of his mouth, a little bit on the chin, and the same with the other side of the mouth, and catch that with a bit of this. And then obviously, because the teeth are the pallid witch flesh pure, we don't want to go down to that colour near the teeth. If we do that, then obviously you're going to blend that lip into those teeth. So all I'm going to do on this side is just a little bit on some of these out sort of poked areas. It's going to catch the light a little bit. So we don't want to go down in here, but I will come down here ever so slightly. And looking at it now, I'm thinking of not going with any flesh shade wash. I think I may have got this built up how I like it without needing that wash, but we will see. I think the wash may make it a little too dark in there, but I'll have a look. And that's the thing with the with my style of painting, at least, or the way that I paint. I have a sort of set idea in mind, but I can change it along the way. You know, I don't set anything in stone. I see how the model is progressing as I paint. So just catching the top of the ear here. Some of that lower jaw area. Mix that back in with a little bit of the flesh tone. Try and blend between the two. Okay, now I know it's looking a little bit grey there on the camera. Not so bad in real life, so hopefully I'll be able to get that to look a little bit different on the photos. Again, you'll be able to check these out on Instagram, but I will post them up in here as well, so you can obviously check them out here. And as I said, I do change my mind backwards and forwards, so I am going to use the flesh shade, but not as a wash. I'm going to use it as though it's another colour or another paint, and use it to line in some of these detail areas and just get some deeper shadow in there. Actually do the tongue and get the tongue a nice shade. Obviously it's got that Acadian flesh tone on there. We can throw it under the chin and just pick off around some of these edges where it's going to join up onto the armour there. Not sure what to call it, maybe his collar. You can also use it as a sort of glaze, just to add a little bit more colour back into that pallid witch flesh on the top. There we go, so we got a much better look now. Looking a bit pale on the camera, not quite that pale in real life, but hopefully that will show you guys the detail within it. So now what we need to do, his eyes on the camera, they don't seem to look too bad. They look like they've got pupils in them, but on the model himself, he looks like he's missing pupils. He's, you know, white eyes only, and that's not a great look for a model when it's a display piece like this. Okay, apologies there guys, so the camera stopped recording without me realising. Hopefully you can see there. Now, I'm not sure what it's missed, so I will just go over what I did. With the Loken flesh shade, I've gone in and just added some shading onto this side of the face and into the mouth there, so we've got that nice sort of flesh looking tongue. And obviously you can see the teeth, it's gone between them, so we've got a nice bit of detailing in those teeth now. All I've got to do is touch up them bottom ones a little bit, and then on this side I've just put the Loken flesh shade sort of as a glaze over some of it, just to pick out some detail in the ear, and a little bit of shadow under here and under the neck, and just gone across the top. And like I say, just a glaze, just to pinken up that pallid witch flesh mix a little bit, just so he's not quite so grey looking. And now all I've got to do is just try and get some pupils into those eyes, and what I'm going to do is make sure that they're just slightly off centre. If you put them centre, it can tend to make them look cross-eyed, so I'm just going to go off centre. So what I've got here is a size 2&0 brush, and I know I'm going to screw this up because I am terrible when it comes to eyes, and when it's behind camera it's even harder. So let's see if I can get this. What I'm looking to go for is to just dot in, if I can get a little bit of a blob of paint on the end. There we go. Just dot in just to the side here. Maybe gone a bit too dark. That's fine. I can neaten that up with some white, some pallid witch flesh, and then here we just want to come in like so. Nope, that hit the outside edge. Right, so now what I can do is come back in with that pallid witch flesh and just go along the edges here and back along there. So now we've got a little bit more centre. Again, it's a little bit on its cheek, but we can fix that. Just need a little bit white on the outside edge, just so it doesn't look like his pupils right on the edge. A bit too much. So now all we need to do is just go back in here, darken that out a little bit, back on that cheek. And you know, something like this, it is very much backwards and forwards, trying to get the right look. Okay, so all I'm doing here is just rinsing the brush, getting that paint super thin, so I can then go back in on the top here and blend that across. Just going to thin this down, get a little bit of that flesh tone in there, and then glaze back over the top of this. Okay, so back to the flesh shade. And same again, this is using the 2-in-0 brush. Just going to go over with this ripened flesh shade and just sort of pinken up all of his flesh a little bit. I'm using it as a glaze. There we go. And then finally just add a few small thin down palette rich flesh for highlights. So sort of along the bridge of the nose, across the top of this cheek, and then just a little bit just on the top of his head here. And then top of the ear. And there we go, that is the face finished. It's looking a lot dirtier on cam than it is on in person, but like I say, I'll include some photos where you guys can see what this truly looks like. Okay, so now that his face is done, we can very carefully put in the black. Now obviously he's going to have black for his hair, so this is going to take a nice couple of coats of black. As usual, this is the Abaddon black. Obviously black where the gold is going to be, and again being very careful not to get it on any of that finished flesh area. And then obviously around his lower collar down here. Now he's got this earpiece here, so I'm just going to very carefully get some black onto that. And I do believe that this part of it is gold or copper or something, so we'll get that in with some gold. Now I know, because the skin is done, anywhere I see that is white, I know that that should be black. Now I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail doing the back, because it's not going to be seen, and I know some painters will say just because you can't see it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but you know, what is the point? It's wasting time, it's wasting paint, it is never going to be seen. If there was a chance it could be seen at a certain angle, then yeah, by all means do it. But when you've got a piece like this on Abaddon, where the back of it is going to be hidden within this hood, so even if you look from the top, you're not going to see behind halfway through this head. I mean, that's the angle you're going to be looking at. You can't see behind there. Try and get that to focus, but you can't see that back area. So I would always give it a basic paint job just to make sure nothing stands out, but I'm not going to go in and do the detail like we have on the front of the face, or you know, the armour and stuff like that. It's just not worth it. And if you guys are doing that, then you know, fair play to you, but at the same time, why? Now obviously, because his hair's black, it is important that I get everything covered and no grey or white showing, as that is going to stand out like a sore thumb, and I don't want that. Okay, so just let that dry for a minute and then we'll come back. Okay, so next up, just before we do the hair, we need to get some eyebrows on this guy. So I've just got a bit of black on my brush here, and all we're going to do is just lightly speckle in a brow right across the top of the brow there, where it obviously you would have the hair. And all I'm doing is just using the very tip of the brush just to touch that brow, and without going into it, I'm just pulling down towards the eye socket, and that way we're just feathering up, like I say, that top brow. There we go. I've gone a little bit into the eye, so I'll just neaten that up with some flesh. There we go. Right, so first of all we'll do the hair on the top. Super easy. Black, a little bit of the pallid witch flesh. Really doesn't matter that it's not pure white. It's pale enough that we are going to get a grey out of it. And then all I'm going to do is just brush along the top of the hair here. And then add a little bit more, get it to a pale grey, and this is going to be the highlight. Just for that top area there. Touch it away. And that'll give us that grey black look. There we go, nice and easy on that, nothing overly complicated. And then all we can do is take some of that same grey and just run it around the rim of that piece, and then again just along here, and that does that bit of black detailing for us. Like I said, on the back, don't need anything overly complicated. It's not going to be seen as long as it's, you know, there's no white showing, because that will stand out if you manage to catch it. Right, so all that's left now is the gold part for his top knot there, and then that earpiece there, and then some of these wires. So obviously for this we'll go with the Balthazar gold. And the Retributor armour. Now this is going to be under his cowl a little bit, so it's not going to catch a huge amount of light, so the Retributor armour will be enough of a highlight without needing to run some silver in there. So with the size 1 brush, first of all we're going with the Balthazar, and obviously give this a nice even coat, being careful not to get it on either the flesh nor the black. Then we've got this wire here, and this earpiece on this outside edge, and then on the back he's just got these couple of wires here that we can put in with some Balthazar gold, and that's that. Okay, so then onto the Retributor armour. All I'm going to do with this is add highlight just down this edge here, and then just a little bit on there, and then along this earpiece here, just along the top portion of it. There we go. And then we can take just a little bit of Stormhost silver and run that right in where that light is shining, just there. There we go. And that is Abaddon's face done. So obviously off camera I'm going to go and fit that into place, and then we can take a look at the finished Abaddon with his base.